The Bombardier CSeries, now known as the A220, is undoubtedly one of the most successful clean-sheet narrowbodies launched in decades. It's efficient, loved by passengers, and is proving itself with airlines around the world. Yet, it's creating a major dilemma for Airbus. At the minute, there are just two variants of the A220. The -100 is the smallest and can seat 135 passengers, while its big brother, the -300, can realistically seat up to 150, which is interestingly the same as the A319neo. Yeah, I didn't even know that existed until making this video. So what's this about Airbus building an A220-500? Well, speculations have been circulating that Airbus would build an even bigger A220, dubbed the -500, and this would be able to seat up to 180 passengers, and this would throw it right into the ring to take on the Boeing 737 MAX 8, Comac C919, Embraer E2, and even Airbus's A320neo, all at once. So then, on paper, this would be a jet capable of covering all corners of the mid-market segment. And with Airbus's chief commercial officer stating the A220-500 isn't a matter of if, but when, then it seems Airbus is highly likely to capitalize on this rare opportunity and stretch the A220. But should they? Well, there's plenty of reasons for why they should, but there's a lot more for why they should not, and if they get it wrong, it could turn into a very expensive mistake, possibly cannibalizing their best seller, the A320neo, or yet again being crippled with the same engine problems as the existing A220, likely forcing it to be pulled out of commercial service for heavy maintenance just a few years after purchase. To really see what's going on and ultimately why the A220-500 might be problematic, let's go through some background context. The original CSeries was built by Canadian jet maker Bombardier, and while it was going to be revolutionary, Bombardier faced rising costs, numerous delays, and stiff competition. But the final blow was dealt by Boeing when they filed a trade complaint against Bombardier, accusing them of unfairly reducing the price of their jet to undercut competition, and the result was a tariff of 300% for airlines in the United States. But luckily for Bombardier, Airbus stepped in at the last minute and bought a majority stake of 50.01% for just $1 Canadian, and funnily enough, was a major backfire for Boeing, and quite comedically gave their main competition a huge advantage, as Airbus now had control of the mid-market segment that had previously been underserved by existing aircraft. Between the maximum capacity of the A220-300 and A320neo, which starts at 180, there is a sizable gap that many airlines want filled, and an A220-500 would fit that perfectly. Even more perfectly considering the 160 to 180 seat space is a massive global market. This would give airlines still using A319s, 737-700s and older A320s a perfect, ultra-modern replacement which would cut down heavily on fuel costs, thanks to the lightness of the aircraft which stems from its advanced aluminium lithium airframe. And we mustn't forget its new engines, the Pratt & Whitney PW1500G, which utilizes a gearbox to drive the fan blades at a much lower speed than the compressor, making it the quietest and most efficient engine in its class. And because of this, the A220 program is gaining quite a lot of traction and becoming very popular with airlines such as Air Baltic, Breeze and Delta, who all say their customers love it due to the ultra-modern design, quiet ride, extra legroom and spacious cabin, allowing 19-inch seats to be offered in economy, which is up to 2 inches more generous than 737 variants. Airlines also love it as they say its operating efficiency is better than they expected. And of course, being an Airbus, they have maintained the familiar cockpit layout, and through simple features like fleet commonality, airlines can save big by not having to train pilots on new aircraft. That's pretty much all the reasons I can think of for building an A220 stretch, but of course the reason you're here is to see why an A220-500 would be a bad idea. So let's start with what I touched briefly on earlier, about an A220-500 eating into the sales of the A320neo. The A320 family is set to overtake the 737 as the most sold aircraft line ever at 12,155 deliveries, and as of August 2025, the gap is just 20. Airbus build around 50 A320 aircraft per month, with this number expected to increase to 75 in the coming years. But it's a struggle for Airbus. You see, because the A320neo family is such a smash hit, they have a monumental backlog of over 7,000 aircraft. And at the current rate, although impressive, would ultimately force an airline to wait at least 3 years to receive their new jet if they ordered today. But because an A220 stretch would overlap directly with the A320neo, then airlines could simply change their order. You might be thinking this is no big deal. At the end of the day, it's still the same company selling both jets. But Airbus would want to ensure that the A320neo remains the go-to choice for airlines with higher capacity needs, and negotiating discounts with airlines on particular aircraft may start an internal price war between the two models. But one of the biggest problems facing the A220-500 would be profitability. Ever since Airbus acquired the C-Series program production, they have been losing money on every single unit sold. Manufacturing inefficiencies, complex design, smaller assembly line, competitive prices, the list goes on. Even the factories can't keep up with current demand, and adding a new jet into the lineup increases cost and delays profitability even further away than it is now. Stretching any airframe isn't exactly free, as it adds weight to the airframe, which may reduce the A220's edge in efficiency and of course the certification delays. More weight would likely require the landing gear to be strengthened and possibly redesigned entirely, similar to the 737 MAX 10, which uses telescoping landing gear to prevent tail strikes during takeoff rotation. And if you're interested, here's a link to a video I made about the MAX 10, which looks at the challenges of stretching an existing airframe in more detail. Aside from all that, Airbus's real growth lies with the A321XLR, which is the closest replacement to a 757 and is currently dominating transatlantic narrowbody routes. And with many airline executives showing interest for something bigger than the A321XLR, then Airbus may need to prioritize a possible A322 stretch instead. But the biggest problem an A220 stretch would face would be engines. The aforementioned PW1500G is the sole power plant for the A220. This engine has suffered from reliability and durability problems, but an A220-500 would likely need an entirely new engine capable of producing enough thrust for the larger, heavier airplane. But engine maker Pratt & Whitney is already struggling to deliver current engines, and scaling up thrust without fixing reliability is risky, and certifying a new engine type would take years and cost billions. An example of this would be the A320neo, which offers two engine types, the CFM LEAP 1A and the PW1100G, and although it was just a re-engineering, it still took years of testing, and both engines had their own separate issues. I suppose if Airbus really wanted to build an A220-500, their best bet would be to consider the Rolls-Royce Ultrafan, which was designed to be fully scalable so that it could be used in the narrow-body market. But that would mean waiting for a while, because the Ultrafan hasn't yet finished development testing, and will probably make its first run sometime around 2030. A scaled version will likely take even longer, so that means Airbus would be waiting at least a decade before thinking of building an A220 stretch. But at the end of the day, I can only predict what will happen, and there are plenty of good reasons for Airbus to go ahead and build the A220-500. But for now, it really isn't a priority. I think they should keep the A320neo as their cash cow, and protect it from internal competition with another A220 variant, while also streamlining A220 production to start turning a profit on what is undoubtedly one of their most important planes. So, Airbus can choose whether or not they build the A220 stretch, and when the time comes for Boeing to build its long-awaited 797, then the A220-500 will undoubtedly happen, but just not yet. So what do you think Airbus should do? Please leave a comment down below with your thoughts, and if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to check out this one as well. Alright, I'll see you soon.